The gift of Harun al-Rashid. William Butler Yeats. Custa ben Luca is my name. I write to Abd al-Rabban, fellow roysterer once, now the good Caliph's learned treasurer, and for no ear but his. Carry this letter through the great gallery of the treasure house, where banners of the Caliphs hang, night-colored but brilliant as the night's embroidery, and wait war's music. Past the little gallery, past books of learning from Byzantium written in gold upon a purple stain, and pause at last, I was about to say, at the great book of Sappho's song. But no, for should you leave my letter there, a boy's love lorn, indifferent hands might come upon it and let it fall unnoticed to the floor. Pause at the treatise of Parmenides and hide it there, for Caliphs to world's end must keep the perfect, as they keep her song, so great its fame. When fitting time has passed, the parchment will disclose to some learned man a mystery that else had found no chronicler but the wild Bedouin. Though I approve those wanderers that welcomed in their tents what great Harun al-Rashid, occupied with Persian embassy or Grecian war, must needs neglect, I cannot hide the truth that wandering in a desert, featureless as air under a wing, can give birds wit. In after time they will speak much of me and speak but fantasy. Recall the year when our beloved Caliph put to death his vizier Jafar for an unknown reason, ampersand quo. If but the shirt upon my body knew it, I'd tear it off and throw it in the fire. Ampersand quo. That speech was all that the town knew, but he seemed for a while to have grown young again. Seemed so on purpose, muttered Jafar's friends, that none might know that he was conscience-struck, but that as a traitor's thought. Enough for me that in the early summer of the year the mightiest of the princes of the world came to the least considered of his courtiers, sat down upon the fountain's marble edge, one hand amid the goldfish in the pool, and thereupon a colloquy took place that I commend to all the chroniclers, to show how violent great hearts can lose their bitterness and find the honeycomb. Ampersand quo. I have brought a slender bride into the house. You know the saying, ampersand quo. Ampersand quo. Change the bride with spring. Ampersand quo. And she and I, being sunk in happiness, cannot endure to think you tread these paths, when evening stirs the jasmine bough, and yet are brideless. Ampersand quo. Ampersand quo. I am falling in 2 years. Ampersand quo. Ampersand quo. But such as you and I do not seem old like men who live by habit. Every day I ride with falcon to the river's edge, or carry the ringed mail upon my back, or court a woman. Neither enemy, game bird, nor woman does the same thing twice. And so a hunter carries in the eye a mimic of youth. Can poets thought that springs from body and in body falls like this pure jet, now lost amid blue sky, now bathing lily leaf and fish's scale, be mimicry? Ampersand quo. What matter if our souls are nearer to the surface of the body than souls that start no game and turn no rhyme? The soul's own youth and not the body's youth shows through our lineaments. My candle's bright, my lantern is too loyal not to show that it was made in your great father's reign, and yet the jasmine season warms our blood. Ampersand quo. Ampersand quo. Great prince, forgive the freedom of my speech, you think that love has seasons. And you think that if the spring bear off what the spring gave, the heart need suffer no defeat. But I who have accepted the Byzantine faith, that seems unnatural to Arabian minds, think when I choose a bride I choose forever. And if her eye should not grow bright for mine or brighten only for some younger eye, my heart could never turn from daily ruin, nor find a remedy. Ampersand quo. Ampersand quo. But what if I have lit upon a woman who so shares your thirst for those old crabbed mysteries, so strains to look beyond our life, and I that never knew that strain would scarce seem bright, and yet herself can seem youth's very fountain, being all brimmed with life? Ampersand quo. Ampersand quo. Were it but true I would have found the best that life can give, companionship in those mysterious things that make a man's soul or a woman's soul itself and not some other soul. Ampersand quo. Ampersand quo. That love must needs be in this life and in what follows unchanging and at peace, and it is right every philosopher should praise that love. But I being none can praise its opposite. It makes my passion stronger, but to think like passion stirs the peacock and his mate, the wild stag and the doe. That mouth to mouth is a man's mockery of the changeless soul. Ampersand quo. and thereupon his bounty gave what now can shake more blossom from autumnal chill than all my bursting springtime knew. A girl perched in some window of her mother's husk had watched my daily passage to and fro, had heard impossible history of my past, imagined some impossible history lived at my side, thought time's disfiguring touch gave but more reason for a woman's care. Yet was it love of me, or was it love of the stark mystery that has dazed my sight, perplexed her fantasy and planned her care? Or did the torchlight of that mystery pick out my features in such light and shade two contemplating passions chose one theme through sheer bewilderment? She had not paced the garden paths, nor counted up the rooms, before she had spread a book upon her knees and asked about the pictures or the text. And often those first days I saw her stare on old dry writing in a learned tongue, on old dry faggots that could never please the extravagance of spring, or move a hand as if that writing or the figured page were some dear cheek. Upon a moonless night I sat where I could watch her sleeping form, and wrote by candlelight. But her form moved, and fearing that my light disturbed her sleep I rose that I might screen it with a cloth. I heard her voice, Ampersand quo. Turn that I may expound what's bowed your shoulder and made pale your cheek, and saw her sitting upright on the bed. Or was it she that spoke, or some great djinn? I say that a djinn spoke. A livelong hour she seemed the learned man and I the child. Truths without father came, truths that no book of all the uncounted books that I have read, nor thought out of her mind or mine begot, self-born, high-born, and solitary truths, those terrible implacable straight lines drawn through the wandering vegetative dream, even those truths that when my bones are dust must drive the Arabian host. The voice grew still, and she lay down upon her bed and slept, but woke at the first gleam of day, rose up and swept the house and sang about her work in childish ignorance of all that passed. A dozen nights of natural sleep, and then when the full moon swam to its greatest height she rose, and with her eyes shut fast in sleep walked through the house. Unnoticed and unveiled I wrapped her in a hooded cloak, and she, half running, dropped at the first ridge of the desert and there marked out those emblems on the sand that day by day I study and marvel at, with her white finger. I led her home asleep, and once again she rose and swept the house in childish ignorance of all that passed. Even today, after some 7 years, when maybe thrice in every moon her mouth murmured the wisdom of the desert jinns, she keeps that ignorance, nor has she now that first unnatural interest in my books. It seems enough that I am there. And yet, old fellow student, whose most patient ear heard all the anxiety of my passionate youth, it seems I must buy knowledge with my peace. What if she lose her ignorance, and so dream that I love her only for the voice, that every gift and every word of praise is but a payment for that midnight voice that is to age what milk is to a child? Were she to lose her love, because she had lost her confidence in mine, or even lose its first simplicity, love, voice and all my fine feathers would be plucked away and I left shivering. The voice has drawn a quality of wisdom from her love's particular quality. The signs and shapes, all those abstractions that you fancied were from the great treatise of Parmenides, all those gyres and cubes and midnight things are but a new expression of her body drunk with the bitter sweetness of her youth. And now my utmost mystery is out. A woman's beauty is a storm-tossed banner. Under it wisdom stands, and I alone, of all Arabia's lovers I alone, nor dazzled by the embroidery, nor lost in the confusion of its night-dark folds, can hear the armed man speak.